The feedback I'll get from responders is, thank you for the work you're doing, and thank you for listening to me, and thank you for, taking my input and applying it. The biggest mistake we can make is we develop something without their input, and then it just misses the target.
This is Technologically Speaking, the official podcast for the Department of Homeland Security Science and Technology Directorate, or S&T as we call it. Join us as we meet the science and technology experts on the front lines keeping America safe.
Welcome to Technologically Speaking at S&T. I'm one of your hosts, Deepak Saini. Today, I'm thrilled to introduce Anthony Caracciolo. Anthony leads innovative research and development projects that empower our first responders in the field so they can help strengthen public safety. Welcome, Anthony.
Hey, Dee, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good.
Thank you for being here. So, Anthony, I want to talk about, off the top, your last name, Caracciolo. It's Italian. It's powerful. You know what I love about Italian names in general is when you say them, it comes from like the gut and your chest, and you say them with such passion.
That's
And
because we have so many vowels.
what were you like as a kid? Did you have a favorite subject in school? Were you more creative, or did you always knew you would fall into more of the science and tech field?
No, it's I grew up in New York, so it's a big family, of course. My parents had 7 kids.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was the 6th of the 7th, and they were older in age. And so by the time they got to parenting, and I'm the 6th kid, they were
Tired.
tired of doing it. Been there,
They
done
let the other
that
kids raise
plenty.
you. They probably had the older siblings help raise you
A
for
little
sure.
bit, a little bit. Yeah. And then, but being in New York City, so there was a lot of, how would you say, unsupervised time.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so I joined the Air Force when I was
Yeah.
20.
Thank you for your service. And I understand you have a brother who was a police officer in New York as well. How did having him in your family and his experiences help shape who you are and what you bring to the table at S&T as well?
Right, he served 20 years as a New York City police officer, and it goes back to the parenting thing a little bit because he was 10 years older than me, and I could remember walking past his girlfriend's house on the way to junior high school, and sometimes he would pop out and like, "You better be going to school." If not, what's interesting now for me in supporting first responders, and I don't bring it up a lot with them. It's only after I get to know individual police officers that I'll mention to them that, I have a brother that's a retired police officer. And I don't want to say it gives you complete street cred, right? Because it doesn't, but it starts making a connection
Yeah.
with those officers. And what's important about that is making that connection to them. They get comfortable with you and really revealing and giving you insight of how their operations go.
Yeah, because
Um,
it shows them that you get their world or
yeah,
you have a better understanding than the average everyday American who may
right.
not be as closely affiliated. What do you hear from first responders in terms of maybe the dangers that are increasing in their jobs, perhaps in the cities, in the neighborhoods, in the environments that they have to work in?
What we don't realize is the environment they do work in is very dynamic from a lot of different aspects. And one of the things I did just recently completed is a community police academy in Fairfax County where I live. And part of what I did that was to learn what they're learning, right? We actually get to go to the test track and see how they drive and the rules they apply. Then we go to a test range and then we do a ride along with them.
Yeah, I did a ride along in my past life as a journalist as well. And what I found fascinating was how quickly they have to act like a human computer. It's like they're having to do 10 different functions, and I'm sure a lot more, very quickly, very fast, all while trying to stay calm under pressure. So I feel like
Yep.
that was so invaluable for you because it helped you better understand them.
And our job now is how do we make their job more effective for them and how do we make it safer for them? So one of the things we develop and it's going to transition to hopefully the commercial market soon is a technology called DEP Life. It's detect the
Yes.
presence of life. There, when we build a prototype, we're trying to account for everything that responders might need. But when you actually talk to them and give them the device and say, here, use it, right? And which we've done in national field assessments, here, go use it. And when you come back and say, all I need to know is someone in that room. Right? I
Yeah.
don't need a lot of bells and whistles, but all I need to know is someone's in that room. And most importantly, I can rely on that information to be accurate.
Yeah.
So when I go in that room, if it's telling me it's empty, it better be empty, right?
So DEP Life stands for Detect Presence of Life. It's specifically designed to help first responders easily and safely identify if someone's in the building, like you mentioned earlier, when a direct line of sight is not an option. To clarify, it doesn't show you like literally who they are, but
No,
it
right.
just gives you a sort of a motion detection, right?
That's right. It's what it does. It's using standard radar that transmits through, let's say, a typical interior wall. And what it does is whatever's in the room, it could be furniture, a person, that radar energy hits it and bounces back. And the image it actually gives you on a screen is just like a blob or a straight line of here's the energy coming back. So there's no details to it. It uses motion to determine if there's life in a room. And what I mean by that, because most of the items in a room are static, right? It's
Yeah.
furniture, refrigerator, right? So the energy bounces off that and it's not moving. A human, even if they're trying to stay still, breathes. And that life, the technology will detect that motion, your chest going up and down.
I feel like this is a great innovative technology, especially for, let's say, a firefighter comes across a building. It looks really dangerous to get in. Before they even bother going in, they could really quickly be able to tell if there's a sign of human life in there or perhaps someone's pet. And
Right,
then,
right, right.
yeah, that's fascinating.
The current
Mhm.
technology, you have to place it up against the wall and it has to be stationary, right? Because you
I
got to
see.
remember, this is a motion detector. And the detector itself cannot be experienced in motion. It can't be movement to make accurate detections. What we've asked MIT to work on is, all right, can we get these detectors to actually work properly while they are experiencing motion, while they're moving themselves? We're doing a test and evaluation event to see if MIT has met this goal. Let's say we have the detector on a drone. It's in the air, but it's not flying around. It's in a stationary position. And if it's experiencing any movement from wind and stuff like that, it doesn't affect the operation of that life. And another prototype they're testing it on is a handheld one where a responder would, let's say, pull out the device and point it at a wall that he is interested in or a room, and his own movement from his own breathing and moving around won't affect it, right? It'll still work properly. And
Mhm.
so that's where we're at today. For the next phase, which we call major movement, potentially, let's say the drone is actually moving around. It's airborne and it's flying around the building. And this
I
is
see.
where now we start to expand the use case of this technology, not just from handheld, I got to put it up against the wall, but if I can mobilize it and we get it on a drone or the officer or fireman is walking with it, right? So let's say I'm a firefighter. One of the first things they do when they get to a scene is one is get water on the immediate fire, but two is do an assessment, 360 assessment of the fire.
Mhm.
An officer normally does that. Can we put this technology on a drone and they can start scanning the building from the outside, right? To see if they start detecting people, right? Now, if I have the presence of life technology and a drone, can I actually fly it into a building, right? If I have an active shooter, can I send it in and look for where everyone is, right? Because not only can I find the active shooter individual themselves, right? But now can I start finding, locating people that have been shot and injured? Because in those events, people usually die because they don't get treated.
Yeah.
And if you could get a responder to them to treat them, there's a good chance you're going to save their lives. So this is where this technology, if we keep on advancing it, could really change the tools that we put in responders' hands, right?
Yeah, no, that sounds great. This depth life technology is great for law enforcement when they're encountering situations like breaching
Yep,
operations or
yep,
searching for trafficked individuals,
yep,
hostages. And it seems like with the drone capabilities, if we can get it to that point, we can probably do a lot more with it.
yes. And that's the whole idea, right? If we could give them a tool that they don't have to personally dedicate an individual responder, then that really extends their reach, right? Because I could get a drone up and circle a building a lot faster than maybe a person, right?
What's great about this technology is that it's true and tried. I understand there were multiple field assessments last year. There were 6 federal, state, and local law enforcement agencies across California, Texas, and South Carolina
Yep.
that tested this out and provided feedback. I'm sure that also helped perfect it to get to a closer state to transition and
Right.
commercialization.
It really did because the two California units we had was LA SWAT and LA HSI. And they had been with the program for a little while now. So they were really familiar with the technology. And their ops tempos, right? When you look at the types of ops they're doing, it's quite different than the two units we had in Texas was the Texas Department of Safety. We had their criminal investigation unit, and we also gave a couple of units to the Texas Rangers. And then when we look at the South Carolina units, it was the County of Richland and then also the State Law Enforcement Division, or SLED as they're called. And they did construction out of California. There's a lot of stucco. When you look at South Carolina, they were manufactured homes that had exterior metal frames or siding. And this technology doesn't work through metal, right? It's just metal just blocks it. So seeing the results from South Carolina versus California to Texas was really invaluable. A lot of it had to do with the user interface too. What's there showing up on the screen? How easily do they take it out of the box and use it? I know with the California SWAT team, they also gave it to new recruits, to new people, and say, all right, here's the manual, see if you can operate it.
And what is it like for you and your team knowing that this is gonna be commercialized and
Yeah,
see the light of day?
it's pretty gratifying. It's one of these things where when I first joined MCS, this was one of the activities I inherited. And we actually modified the contract to add the national field assessments and other events to improve the product. And knowing that we're taking it that far. And then, and I think when we look at responders, especially that are using it, and the feedback we get from them is like, oh, they love it. And some of them already want to buy it. Right.
That's amazing to hear.
Yeah. And it is. And here's the thing about developing technology. I could develop the greatest toaster in the world, right? But if it's not bought for whatever reason, then it just is a hollow feeling if the responders didn't quite trust it. Yeah, it's good, but not a good enough. They
Mhm.
wouldn't buy it because it's their personal safety.
100%. And what's great about this tool that it helps law enforcement meet their needs in terms of being able to detect if something or someone is inside of a building, but then you're working on another technology that can
Right.
actually really help them tremendously once they're inside, and that's mapped in.
Yep.
So think of like indoor map navigator software. So this helps first responders create, update, and maintain a digital warehouse of 3D floor plans that they can access on their tablets and mobile devices. So instead of having to look at a paper map or trying to scramble to find one, this is all digitized, right? And it's
Yes.
3D. Can you talk to me about like how did the idea for this come about and what was it like to work on Mapped In?
Right. Yeah, this came from actually initially from firefighters because if you're familiar with firefighters, they they'll have binders and binders of floor plans, right? And they do that. They use them for their pre-planning. So when
Mhm.
firefighters will go to buildings and inspect them, and they're not just inspecting them to see if they're compliant, but they're also mapping them out, saying where are the water hookups, where is the electrical distribution box, the control center. They look at that building. If I respond to a fire in this building, I got to know the building. I got to know where everything is that I need to do their job, right, to put out the fire and that. And so the requirement was, let's take that binder and digitize it. Let's digitize it, make it easy for them. Now, on top of that, and I actually was having this conversation with the team at MIT, was that if I could put depth life on a drone, could we put map in and depth life on a drone? So one of the things mapping has done since our development was taken hard copy floor plans, a picture of a floor plan, or you already might have a digital file of a floor plan. And what they have added is LiDAR capability. So with your iPhone that has LiDAR, you could go into a room and map it with your iPhone, instantaneous mapping right
Oh,
there.
that makes it easy.
Yes. And one of the things I've talked to MIT about is like, wait a minute, what if we put depth life on a drone and I put mapping on a phone and maybe let's say infrared technology on a drone? Not only can I map the outside, let's say I take that drone into a building and I have using mapping, I could map out as the drone is flying, what is it seeing, the hallways, doors, I go into a room, it can map it out. But even let's say I'm in the hallway, I'm mapping it out. And before I go into a room, do I use depth life to detect if someone's in that room or not? And then if I have infrared technology on that drone, I could show the firefighters where the hotspots are. So my vision is I have a drone with all these different mapping technology, detection technology, so that before a responder goes into a building, whether they're police or firefighters, they could start mapping out from the exterior of a building that is my eyes and ears. Because another technology we developed and we're currently doing is two-way communication on a drone.
Oh, Bellbird.
Yeah, Bellbird, while the drone is flying. It's one thing for a drone to land on the ground, shut off its propellers, and then you can have a two-way conversation. What we're working on is the drone is actually flying. And that noise from it is pretty loud, but you can still conduct two-way communications. My crazy vision, and I say crazy because putting a lot of different capabilities on one drone is not easy. So we have to detect the presence of life, right? And if I do come across someone, can I speak to them? Can I get more information from them? Because I'm having a two-way conversation with, or let's say they're hurt. Could I actually start having them administer first aid to themselves if they're conscious and everything?
Yeah, that can help.
Or I could give them directions saying, hey, here's how you get out of the building. The buildings are fired. They don't know where to go. Could the drone now communicating to them, lead them out of the building, right? So you got to follow me, right?
That's a great grand vision to have so they can quickly and efficiently get through buildings. I understand that schools are
Yes.
utilizing it.
Yeah, glad you brought that up. Is one of the things the company Mappin has done is made the basic mapping services free to responders and schools.
That's great. This can help first responders communicate with folks on the ground from the air, right? So if you imagine like maybe a large speaker or a microphone,
Right, right.
Anthony, I suppose this would be helpful in terms of, let's say there's a huge music festival and there's a huge emergency, right? This might be an easy way for first responders to communicate, perhaps maybe safely exiting or something like that.
Indeed, you're exactly right. The initial requirement was for crowd control. It wasn't specifying specific solution. It was just saying, hey, submit your ideas on crowd control. If you want to hold anyone responsible, accountable for obeying your instructions and directions, you got to make sure your communications is reaching everyone. And the current technologies were on the ground, right? And so they weren't reaching everyone. So the idea was put that loudspeaker on a drone. Now you can reach everyone.
Yeah,
And one of the things we learned from responders is that the use cases for those capabilities were quite different. Where a loudspeaker, it's really just one-way communication, and a drone is flying up high. It could be up
mhm,
200, 300 feet up to protect itself. Because if it's flying really low and you're on a demonstration, people are going to throw stuff at it, try and
yeah,
take it out. So what we learned is you have to be up high, which means you can't do two-way communication because you're just too high. But at the same time, on that same drone, we had two-way communication. Now, the two-way communication worked well, but we realized the use cases for that were quite different and required a different drone.
I see.
And what's significant about that, it actually makes commercialization possibilities better because instead of trying to put all capabilities on one drone, all communication capabilities on one drone, my crazy idea putting up all this stuff on one drone
Yeah.
can be quite difficult, right? Because not everyone that buys a drone for crowd control purposes is going to want two-way communication. Two-way, we're taking that further development where we're going to do national field assessment.
Yeah, no, that sounds great. You have a handful of great technologies that you're working on. Out of all the things that you have your hand in, like, what do you find the most interesting and impactful about these technologies being developed, helping first responders be safer, more efficient, so they could
Right,
save
right.
more lives?
What's interesting is in the first responder world, our path to success is commercialization. Versus if my customer base was CBP or ICE, I have another DHS component. And and if I hit the target for them, they might be able to afford something that's more expensive versus first responders. If I see Depp Life out in the field in 2 years, it'd be like, you know what, I had a part in that. Right.
Yeah,
And
and you're
yeah,
doing impactful work. What advice do you have for someone that's interested in a career with first responder technologies?
really listen to your customers. Understand it's not just the tech. It's you have to earn their trust, not just as you as an individual. They want to, right? They got to trust you as an individual that you are listening to them, that you are taking what input you're asking for and actually really applying it. The feedback I'll get from responders is thank you for the work you're doing and thank you for listening to me and thank you for taking my input and applying it. The biggest mistake we can make is We develop something without their input, and then it just misses the target.
That's a really good point, and I like the fact that you bring up trust because not only do first responders have to trust that this technology is gonna really immensely help them in the field and do their jobs better, but the public also has to trust that these technologies are being used, in fact, for that reason, to help them, to save them.
Right, right.
Anthony, there's another technology that you're working on that's in the very early stages called contactless vehicle stoppage. So I'm thinking of like a on-off remote that a police officer can use to stop a adversarial vehicle in the field. Perhaps there's a police pursuit, or perhaps it can stop a truck driving into a crowd. But can you paint the picture about how this technology came to be and its purpose?
When you look at vehicle pursuits right now, from law enforcement standpoint, in order to stop a vehicle, they have to have some kind of physical contact, whether they're fishboning a car, putting out strips and all that. And a lot of times in high-speed chases, those tactics result in injury, fatalities, and property damage. So what actually law enforcement's been doing over the years is reducing or changing their tactics when it comes to pursuits, and they've been backing off. They only carry out pursuits when there's a high risk of injury or have a dangerous person that's in the car. We got to stop them now because they're going to go on and continue causing harm or damage. It's active. So police have been backing off on research on vehicle pursuits just because of the negative impacts. Government agencies have been looking at these at a technology or what they call high-powered microwave energy, where you transmit energy at a target and you disable the electronics in that target. You overwhelm the electronic circuits in that vehicle, and that disruption stops the vehicle. It shuts it down. That technology initially was huge. It was gigantic. You would put it on a trailer or on a big boat or right, and that the technology, through a lot of it through DOE ourselves, we invested where it's getting much smaller. So what we're doing now is investing in how do we miniaturize that down even further so that police can actually use that kind of technology against motor vehicles. And recently we just merged in the Coast Guard's requirement for small vessels like jet skis and small boats, because they have the same problem is how do they stop people on the sea? How do they stop them? Because it's their tactics right now for Coast Guard is they have to get up really close to the vessel they're chasing and shoot the engine. And that's pretty dangerous, right? Especially if you're on
Yeah.
a wide water with waves and all that, and you could turn real sharply and all that. So the tactics are not effective, very effective, but they're also very dangerous to the Coast Guard personnel. But the technology itself has really transformed over the last, let's say, 6 years to where it's gotten much smaller. And when we look at the power that we're looking to transmit, it's a lot lower. But the basic technology is, and I like to say it is, we transmit this energy, gets coupled into the vehicle's electronic circuits, and it just causes a seizure in those circuits. And when that happens, those circuits, the components that are supported by those circuits shut down. They go into like a reset mode and they shut down, and that'll shut down the engine then, and that'll bring the vehicle to a stop.
How accurate can this be pinpointed by an officer? Is there a possibility they can accidentally stop the engine of another vehicle? That
Right. Yeah.
yeah.
And the stage we're at right now is we had a proof of concept demonstration back in late 23 that the technology does work, that it can be effective. How far away do they want to be? How narrow of that transmission beam needs to be? We're thinking pretty narrow, but we're entering that phase where now we're going to build a prototype to test that. Your question is exactly right. What happens if on a highway and there's two vehicles besides the target vehicle? What do? You don't want to
Mhm.
take out all the
No.
vehicles, right? So one of the things we're going to work out is what's the range? Because like I said earlier, we're not looking to transmit, even though it's called high powered microwave energy, we're not looking to transmit a lot of power, right? Because what happens is the collateral damage, not just other vehicles, it's infrastructure that's surrounding the area. Or what happens if someone's wearing a medical device, right? So that's part of the phase of research that we're
Mhm.
entering into is build those prototypes and start figuring out that stuff and start fine tuning those operating parameters.
And that's the importance of following through with the R&D pipeline, right? There are a lot of steps that have to be taken to make sure that the prototype and the use case is actually technologically sound in the end, and it's going to serve the purpose that it was intended to do.
We're getting the initial prototype, hopefully commercialized. And then we talked about working with MIT to get them this tech to work when they're in motion. Hopefully it gets commercialized, but then now we're working on the next gen, right? Hopefully we're making it better and it opens up the use cases. DoD has invested millions of dollars into this contactless vehicle stoppage technology. And we're leveraging that. The technology is pretty mature. Now it's just about applying that technology maybe in a new way. Sometimes it takes a while to see that idea bear fruit. And it's a simple idea, right?
Yeah, it takes a lot of time, care, effort, energy. And what's great about your partnerships with DoD, Coast Guard, other agencies is that if you can build an amazing product, they might be able to adapt it to meet their needs as well. So the whole of government sort of partnership effort really is fruitful when it comes to serving the American public.
It's not just transitioning the technology for someone else to commercialize it. I want them to be successful, and that's how I try to put them in the best position to do that.
Anthony, it's been great speaking with you. It's been fascinating to learn about all the different types of first responder technology you're working on that can help them do a much better job in the field, keep them safe. Anthony, program manager for S&T, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate your time.
Dee, thank you for the opportunity, and it's been a pleasure discussing these activities with you, and thank you very much.
Thank you for listening to Technologically Speaking. To learn more about what you've heard in this episode, check out the show notes on our website and follow us on Apple Podcasts and YouTube and on social media at DHS SciTech. DHS SCITECH. Bye.